According to the new data from the Central Bank of Kenya, commercial banks are now charging larger companies higher interest rates on loans compared to startups and individual borrowers. This is because larger companies are perceived as carrying higher risk, and they have over the past 2 years accounted for the majority of the rise in non-performing loans. According to the Central Bank of Kenya, data on lending rates by types of borrower, business firms paid 13.95% on average in September for loans with terms between 1 and 5 years, up from 11.9% a year earlier. Joining me now to discuss this further is Churchill Ogutu. He's an economist with IC Asset Management. It's good to see you. Thanks for coming through, Jambo. What do you make of the Asante? What do you make of this deal between IMF and Kenya? It's been quite some time. It's been discussed even when President Kenyatta was still in office. So it looks like President William Ruto is the one who's going to see this through.
Yeah, thank you. So Kenya is part of, Kenya signed a 38-month IMF program that was way back in April last year. So we are, each and every 6 months, there are the periodic reviews. So this was the 4th review under that 38-month program. So essentially, there are a number of conditions that IMF has been looking as part of this program. And basically, most of these conditions have been fulfilled, things to do with fiscal consolidation. Just to give you some picture, in the fiscal year ending June 2021, we were at around 8%. The next fiscal year, which ended in June this year, it was 6.2%. So that is just telling us that fiscal consolidation is being being achieved, although basically because of the increased revenue and lower spending. So there's also on the state-owned entities, there are a number of reforms targeting some of the key SOEs in the country. One of them is Kenya Airways. Another one is Kenya Power. So broadly, Kenya has been on course in terms of achieving some of the conditions, and that is now giving us some confidence that once the IMF board sits, it will now be able to sign off this 4th tranche of the disbursement.
Okay, so what's the government in Nairobi looking to spend this IMF facility for? But 2 facilities, by the way, a total of 1.55, but coming to about 2-3 different tranches. Well, what's President Ruto have on the agenda for this?
Yeah, what I can say is that even in the previous disbursement, we've never had details as to the target spending areas. Basically, the conditions that we meet, we have to adhere to, and once there's some positive track in terms of achieving those targets, that's where the disbursement come. But from the how they utilize the monies, we've not seen the usage. But 2 things that are coming out. One is that because of obviously there have been some misses here and there in terms of achieving some of the programs prior and also with this review, which I think so. But nonetheless, broadly, we've been on track in terms of achieving. So that has given confidence to IMF to disburse the money. And secondly, if you'll notice that in the upcoming disbursement, which is totaling $433 million, half of it is now what is augmentation, which is basically some additional resources. So this additional resources going towards tackling the drought issue, which is rampant in this part of the world, and also because Kenya, we are not able to tap into the international market. So that is just giving us some cushion in terms of some additional monies. It might be it might not move the needle much, $200 million, but as they say, less is better than nothing. So those are basically in terms of usage of the monies that we should expect with the 4th disbursement.
But why do you think the IMF reduced the growth forecast for Kenya?
I think broadly it's within the whole downward revisions that we saw. This is in the context of the October economic outlook reports. For Kenya, it was slashed by 40 basis points from 5.7% in April to 5.3% in the latest review. And even if you look at it in the context of sub-Saharan African, whereby even the growth was slashed by 0.2 percentage points. So that is basically because of the shocks that have materialized in the course of this year, which now warranted the downward revisions, at least in terms of the 2022 outlook. But that said, looking at Kenya specifically, I'm looking at agriculture sector. This is having a combined 24% weighting in the overall economy. We've seen the drought impact, and to be sure, the first half numbers, we've seen a slowdown in growth in that particular sector. It slowed down by an average of 1.5%, whereas the other sectors had a growth of 9.9%. So as we'll see the third quarter numbers and fourth quarter numbers coming in, that will lead to an overall growth in the country. So agriculture definitely has dragged the economic outlook for this year.
Okay, but what's the outlook for the economy in 2023, broadly speaking?
I think we're still not yet out of the woods. There's still some fiscal concerns. There's some debt vulnerabilities that needs to be ironed out. We have the incoming government coming with their own agenda, just trying to put in place some of the mechanisms to support the lower people in the pyramid. But just to get my views around the reforms that we've had, to me, it's like there are so many things being thrown on the wall, and we are hoping that a number of them will stick out, but we haven't seen solid proposals that could now see us to some more sustainable growth levels. So I'm still a bit concerned in terms of the economic recovery, even as we look at 2023.
Okay, thank you so much, Churchill Ogutu of IC Partners. Thank you so much for your time this morning on this show.